Hello and welcome to our new series, Hotelier's Voice, where we speak to hoteliers about the changes in operations, service and delivery and revenue management and marketing at their properties, and particularly how they're handling the post-COVID-19 world through the application of specific solutions, applications, systems and other technologies that you can place throughout the hotel. Very short, quick interviews here where we actually speak to hoteliers. Joining us today is Joe Setchell, the Group Marketing Manager of a curious group of hotels. He joined the portfolio in October 2019 with its key responsibilities being brand and technologies. Hello there, Joe. How are things going for you this summer and looking forward into 2020 for a curious group of hotels?
Hi there. So things this summer, different. We've good news now. We've opened 3 of our properties. Obviously, we have 4. So we have one in the Cotswolds, London, Paris, and Amsterdam. Currently, Paris is still closed, but we're looking to open middle of September. It's been great for the UK with regards to the Cotswolds. We've seen a huge influx in staycations. We are 10% up on last year, but obviously we're trying to make up for the last 4 months. We're not seeing the same in London as such. I think, what used to be, an asset to us was our locations within the cities is now not. People are avoiding the cities. Concerts aren't going ahead. Theatre shows are shut. There's no festivals. There's no sporting events. So the reasoning to go to the cities is only really restaurants now and a bit of peace and tranquility and seeing things differently. So that's really where we're at the moment. But I'm just glad we have our teams with us and we are open.
Yeah, it must be very interesting to see the differences between a city and a non-city hotel, and that's obviously a lot of conversation going on around that and across the throughout the industry, both in Europe as well as the UK. Tell us about a curious group of hotels. What's the concept behind it?
So Curious Group of Hotels, we started with Cowley Manor in the Cotswolds. We then moved on to L'Hotel in Paris. Before acquiring Canal House in Amsterdam, and then our last property was Portobello Hotel in Notting Hill. We are a hotel slightly a little bit different. Every room is very different. An eclectic taste. It's owned by Peter and Jessica Frankopan, and they have been instrumental in its look and its feel. So there's Andy Boardman, who's the group director. And he is also key in supporting each team and making sure that every guest enjoys what we always say is a curious stay. It's not a typical large group hotel. It's boutique. It's individual. We have our niceties, but we also have a really loyal database. So that's our group in a nutshell.
Now, we're talking about technology on this podcast, and I'm particularly interested in some of the technologies that you've implemented across your portfolio over the last 12 months. Can you give us a little snapshot?
Yeah, so technology in the last 12 months, I think to the latter part of last year, we updated some software we have. Obviously, we use Opera as a reservation system, and at Cowley Manor in the Cotswolds, we updated that and we went online onto the cloud, and that allowed remote access to the software. Coming into January, February, we joined Revinate, which is an email marketing software, which allows us to segment the market so we know who our guests are. But we acquire that information prior to their arrival. You've got a pre-arrival email, 72-hour email, and really just 3 short, sharp questions which capture them as a customer. And then later on, obviously, you follow up with some feedback. It's all integrated within the system. And then it allows us to identify who our customers are and who we are marketing to. So we're not just throwing, a blanket email into a large database, through a system like we previously used to. It's targeted, and that data is ever so important. And then obviously come March, the world started to change slightly. Our industry really started to suffer. And we really quickly identified the need to digitize our customer. Whether it was in a restaurant and it came down to ordering, or whether it was into online check-in. It was a difficult time, and we saw a company out there, great with their service, great with their proposition, and great with their product, and that was Criton. And through Criton, we have also adapted. So Criton is our app development, and with them, we've also joined Loop, which is a kind of communication system. So it's a live chat function. So whether you're on site or off site, you can speak to our front desk. So you don't have that human to human connection.
Well, that's quite a few technologies. Yeah. I mean, especially since you've only been there since October. I mean, that's a few to get your head around. But that sounds like, you are really changing the look, the feel, the way the hotel operates, and really considering the digital traveler today, as well as it sounds like being conscious of the opportunities that you have with your existing contacts through Revenate. So, I mean, let's look at the Opera side of the side of it. So you moved onto the cloud. That gives you that remote access. Why is the cloud so important for you today? I mean, it's your first property. I'm assuming you're going to look at launching that across the other 3 properties in due course. Why is that so essential to you?
It allows that remote access. And why is that remote access so important? A huge task for our reservations manager on site is the daily reporting, the flash and yield reports, and it's the start of removing that role, not that job entirely, but that specific role that they have to achieve. But also it allows sales and marketing from a distance to then go in and actually see, what were the sales that day, what are we looking like as a forecast. That was the importance of why we went onto the cloud.
And I guess you've got to access it from head office as well as locally to know what's happening, so you're all on the same page. And then you looked at Revenate in order to develop your email marketing platform, which I understand integrates with your property management system. So what's been a benefit of being able to access data from the PMS for your marketing campaigns?
So the benefit is we can identify who the customer is. If we're doing a family travel campaign, for example, at the beginning of summer, obviously very niche to a property like Cowley Manor, we know who stayed previous years. Again, whether it's Christmas and they've joined us for the Christmas package, why would they not do it again? We know who we're marketing to. Equally, if autumn's hit, this kind of time of year, where the weather starts to change and you get your welly boots on and bring your dog, and people that have dogs, I can target those people. So it's really, really, really so useful. That data can be a minefield at times, but just be able to identify a group easily. And just know, if previous years that they stayed in the suite, you can do a suite deal for them. Excuse the pun.
Indeed. Now, we're talking about low touch. I mean, we're in a low touch economy, meaning that people aren't going to have so much social contact, and they aren't going to be touching and feeling things as much as we used to. And now, one of the biggest changes that you've made within your property, particularly for your guests, is the launch of an app, which you did in partnership with Criton. What was the purpose of you finding that app, particularly as we went into lockdown in March? And what particularly were you looking for from a guest application?
Sure. So I mentioned before the importance of being able to digitize the guest, and also who are we as a group. So there are groups out there that you don't have to see anyone at the property, and we wanted to make it very clear that how do we achieve what we're trying to achieve whilst maintaining our boutique feel. That human-to-human connection still needs to remain. So how did it develop? We wanted, everyone was on Zoom. Do you know what I mean? Doing family quizzes and all of this. And I thought, even my grandmother was on Zoom. And I thought, actually, this huge part of our audience that we assumed a certain amount would be digital and a certain amount wouldn't. Actually, everyone was becoming quite digital, so we weren't scared of it. Whereas previously we would have, thought that we would have alienated a lot of people. Everyone has a smartphone, so the importance of developing this app was there from the get-go. We had to remove a lot of high-touch items from our bedrooms, hair dryers, telephones, magazines, for example, and that guest information book. Which is the bane of a lot of hoteliers' lives because it's constantly needs updating, or it's just sat there and it's very outdated. So by digitizing everything, you have the power to use one central system to be able to update a lot of technologies and a lot of information for the guests. With that as well, we removed the magazines. We introduced Gold Key Media, who have almost a mobile app piece of software, which is geo-targeted to the IP address on the location. So only guests who are on site can use that software, and that allows you to use an entertainment function, which is audiobooks, magazines. There's a children's section. There's also video and games as well to play. So it really enhances that in-room experience. So we're not being too efficient, with our safety and guidelines and new practice and procedures. We're enhancing the change, which I think was really important.
Yeah, so offering us something else on top of what they've already got. And I understand with Criton as well, you can do the whole online check-in. They have a digital key, and that is a choice as well to the guest and how they do that if they want to. But it offers the same functionality as what you would get from an online check-in at the airport. So people are quite used to that. Yeah,
well, it's the track and trace element that is now. And at the time, we thought it was a little bit too much. But at an airport, you have to check in online. You don't have to, but you have to check in at the desk. And people are very used to this system now. But with track and trace, we have to identify a few questions. Have you shown any symptoms in the last 14 days? We need their name. We need their details. And I know people go out to restaurants and pubs, and they're used to this now. So I think it was very wise of us to introduce this right at the start, and it takes away that element, on arrival.
So how do you source and procure new technology, and what's the decision-making process behind it?
Yeah, I mean, this industry is very tight. We have a lot of friends that may work in different businesses. That works definitely for them, some technologies. But what works for them doesn't necessarily work for the other. But that talk of what's out there and what's available and what's new is very prevalent, and especially this last 6 months, I think people are supporting each other, not just in the industry, in different industries, and what they're finding useful for them, is being spoken about. So, how do we procure it? I suppose word of mouth, previous experience, but in an event like the last 6 months, we did our research, like you would with a quote. You find what is cost effective. You find what is cost effective. Sorry, gone wrong. Sorry,
let me ask the question again. Okay, sorry, that's no problem. So when it comes then to making a decision about which technology to go for once you've done the research, what are the key attributes that make you go, yes, this is the right partner for us?
Yes, so when we've researched our technologies, especially we knew what we needed to achieve. I really think the service proposition is ever so important. At a time where people needed to lean on each other, we were looking for the support over the sale. And I'd say, there were many apps out there, development companies that were available to us, but the team at Criton really benchmarked themselves above and beyond. There was negotiation on the terms of the contract as well. Just let's see if this works for you. There'll be no cost until you actually reopen. Many things that made us say, actually, we want to work with this company. Let's work on this and develop and let's support them, because equally, I think the whole world over, whatever industry you're in, was suffering. So it was nice to build a relationship and a partnership with someone like Criton.
Great, excellent. I mean, that's so important right now, certainly, I think, across all business to get the travel market moving again. So how do you address cultural and operational challenges and changes really within your teams? What do you do to get them onboarded?
So we obviously behind the scenes are spending time, sourcing and developing these products. All great until actually D-Day and you're reopening and your teams really need to champion this. I think with lockdown happening, the silence, the furlough, the break that everyone had, and actually the uncertainty of coming back and how change was going to be, I think it was really important from our side that we really got them involved, in the onboarding sessions. So we'd have the odd kind of training session with whoever we were using, whether it was Criton, whether it was Loop. And then by the time we were looking to our reopening, we spent a long time, probably a week or so, training our teams on new systems and softwares. But it was exciting. Everyone has a smartphone, so they were able to download the app. They were able to use it. They were able to see their business that they work for in a different light, from their phone. And it was modern. And a lot of our staff are young guys who actually probably knew more than we did about the products themselves. So they really championed it, and they need to know that because the guest needs to have a simple journey, and I think the excitement had to come from us, which it did. It did.
Yeah, and now let's have a quick look at some of the teething problems that you've had with new technologies. What are some of the key things that you could fall into if you're not careful when bringing new applications to the hotel?
Sure, I think the migration is always a struggle. I think that it is very important to spend that initial period making sure everything is accurate, re-going through. I mean, with the app, for example, we have our guest directory that was in our bedrooms, and you're transferring that onto the app. But that guest directory, like I said before, is probably out of date and is definitely out of date now. So you had to go through sentence by sentence. Send that through to the app. But what we noticed over the last 6 months was, again, things were changing. Even in the last 2 weeks, we've put telephones back in the bedrooms, we've put hairdryers back in the bedrooms, and we've tagged them as we would, so the guests can still use the phones whilst they're on site rather than using the app itself. But then all that information needs to be changed back into the app. So be accurate, be specific, spend that time at the start. That's really, really important.
And I guess be flexible as well. Recognize that some things will work and some of things won't work as perfectly as you want them to.
Yeah. So
looking to the future then, what technology are you looking at next?
So to the future, we've joined with Revenate, we've joined with Criton, and within Criton we've got Loop as well, and they all work. As far as the guest is concerned, it's all talking to one another, but really, I would like to identify, I'd like to recognize our guests a little bit more with a loyalty program. We've always had it in the back of our minds. If they've stayed with us once, they become a member. If they stay with us twice, they're up to a different tier. If they've moved around our hotel group, we know they're up there and they're really engaged in our product. And really to recognize them and reward them for that. And I think in a nutshell, I would love one central system to be able to communicate, an experience and to create bookings for the guests as well. But really the reward and the redemption of that. That is what I'm looking for. I think that's the simplicity of technology. That would be key to me.
Absolutely. And I think they're all very much on the horizon, as we're seeing with some of these bigger systems now, and you're getting younger, more nimble players out there that could easily help solve those problems and those solutions that you're looking for. Well, Joe, thank you ever so much for joining us on the podcast today. It's been really interesting to get an insight there into how you're looking at technology for a curious group of hotels in Amsterdam, Paris, London, and Cotswolds. I wish you all the best as we come through the rest of 2020 and hope those bookings start coming back into the cities. But thank you ever so much for joining me today.
All right. Cheers. Thank you.
So that was Joe Setchell, the Group Marketing Manager for a curious group of hotels, talking us through from the Hotelier's Voice series, the technologies that he has brought into the portfolio. Keep following us and check out the next episode in the Hotelier Voice series. We've got more to come. Go to travelmarket.life for a full list of all programs and series from the Travel Market Life podcast. Thank you very much. I've been your host, Ryan Haynes. Ciao.